Welcome, emergers. It is Wednesday, the 10th of March. This is another episode of Ready to Emerge Detour Essentials. For those of us in Jamaica, it's the anniversary, anniversary of the pandemic. It's been 1 year. We thought by June we'd be traveling all over the world and all would be well. And 1 year later, we have to wear a mask, we have to sanitize, we have to take care of each other. This thing is no joke. So we are here every week, ladies, at 8 p.m. With me is the rest of the trio. Some of people call us the trio. Naomi, a PR chick.
Who calls us a trio other than ourselves?
Right.
Who calls us a trio? The three O other than the three of us here.
No, but if you keep saying people,
Yeah, the A will catch on.
John is killing me.
They're gonna start with like, do they know that it's trio and not three?
And not trio.
And you know what happens when you do things like you say trio? This is people mouthing. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Join us on Facebook and YouTube. This week is a particularly special week for us. This is on Monday, we celebrated International Women's Day. The month of March is being celebrated as International Women's History Month. And just such an important time for us to pay attention to each other, but also to look back at the women who have paved the way for where we are today, and to ask ourselves some questions. What are we doing to pave the way for the next generation? What elevators are we sending back down? What doors are we opening?
Yeah.
So this year's theme was Choose to Challenge. And tonight we are going to be talking all about being woman and some of the stereotypes that we have to challenge, some of the stereotypes that we have in our own heads. This week, I had the pleasure of sitting on a panel for big conversations. Now, Dr. Renee Rattray, who is one of my very good friends, I'd also like to congratulate her for being Jamaica's representative for 2020 to 2021 for the International Women's Forum.
Oh, that's awesome, Renee.
Jamaica's representative. So she is sitting at the table with women from all over the world. She was on with Dr. Tersa. Her last name is difficult for me to pronounce. She's from Cape Verde. So she actually sounds like a Caribbean national.
Yes.
Joined us to talk to the young ladies. So what it was, it's 10 women having a big conversation with 100 girls ages 15 to 16, that age group. And it was supposed to use all of Jamaica. Let me tell you, a more inspiring event you could not find. It was so emotional and empowering, not just for the girls, but for us.
Everybody, yeah.
We left feeling that the future is secure. These young women
Yes.
talk about the focus, their passion, and yet that youthful energy and hope. And it just kind of puts us back there. And Renee and I, when we talk, Renee always says that we're all girls. We're just at different stages of our girlhood. So it was very just calling each other girls. It was such an amazing experience. And one of the things we started out with was the bigger girls talked about what it meant to be women. What does it mean to us to be a woman? But of course, I dived into that without the introduction. With the introductions. Casita, I see you out there joining us from New York City. Alisa, hey, Alisa came on now. Hi, Lorian. Welcome. So my name is Rochelle Cameron. I am founder and CEO of Christian Consulting Services Limited, where I utilize my legal skills because I'm actually a lawyer, along with communications and my passion for people development to deliver impactful strategies for businesses. And on a Wednesday, I'm right here at 8 p.m. with the trio. Over to you, Naomi.
Hi guys, so my name is Naomi Garrick, also known as the PR Chick, and I'm the founder and CEO of Garrick Communications, a boutique PR agency here in Kingston, Jamaica. I'm also a personal branding coach and brand strategist, so I really help individuals and brands to stand out in a very noisy on and offline world. And of course, I am a member of the Emerge Trio, and tonight it's just us, right?
Well, hi everybody, welcome. I am Kathy Goodall and I am the co-founder of Redefined Business Services Limited. I'm a marketing consultant and a connector of brands, businesses, and people. I'm also a leadership coach, a leadership and growth coach and trainer. And of course, a part of the Emerge Trio. So welcome.
Welcome everybody. And I know we had asked before, well, we tend to ask where everybody's joining from. And I see already we have Althea from New York. Loretta is here with us again. She says,
hi, Loretta.
So, Loretta is totally committed to Emerge, right? Because she's up. I would love to know what time it is in London now, because she said good morning, guys.
Morning, Loretta. Loretta is like a true hardcore emerger.
Bless you, Loretta.
And listen, for our emergers that are online tonight, we want Olipa chatting. Fire up the comments, because tonight we are talking about being woman. We are talking about what we're choosing to challenge. We're talking about the challenges that we face. And we're going to ask ourselves, do we need an International Women's Day? What has it meant for us? What have the benefits been? What are our challenges with it? Tonight, we just have to talk up the things. So, Kathy, what does it mean to be woman? Hi, Brandon Ferguson.
Hi, Brandon.
Brandon.
As much as this is, a conversation around International Women's Day, we are so grateful that we have men that actually watch this program and join us every single week, because there's so much to learn and so much to share through our shared experiences that we can all have right here on this platform. So, guys, don't think that these conversations are not for you too. It's important to hear what women have to say, and we want to hear what the men have to say as well.
Yeah.
And in true female style and woman style, when you look at the women empowerment principles, they are for everybody. It's not actually for women alone. It's just focused on equality for everybody. Because it's not that, being a feminist is about standing up for women's rights, but it doesn't mean negating the rights of everybody else. And because we are nurturers by nature and we're caregivers by nature, it comes naturally to us to want everybody to have a level playing field and for everybody to do well and everybody to thrive and everybody to have the same rights. So for me, being a woman is owning that strength that we've all grown up to and been exposed to with our mothers, because we the three of us definitely have very strong mothers. It's owning the softer side as well, owning the nurturing side, the caring side that allows us to empathize with other people, to feel for other people, and the passion that it ignites for us to want to help other people and to want to do more and to be more.
Yeah. For me, I think of this thing that Brendan Burchard always says, that it's when we end each day, we should ask ourselves, did we live, did we love, did we matter? And I think as a woman, that's something that's so important, right? Every day we want to live, every day we want to love, every day we want to matter. We want to ensure that we create some kind of impact that inspires our own generation as well as the next generation. As Catherine said, there are women that are strong, but it's okay to be soft too. For me, I think being a woman, it's about being a nurturer, also being a caregiver, but also being an entrepreneur and, not being afraid to let your light shine and not being afraid to use your voice when it matters. It's about mentorship, and it's about really bringing up that younger generation that, may see us on these platforms and don't know how they can get to that space or how they can connect. And to be honest, it's something, and I know we'll get into more details, but I found that as a bit of a disconnect between my generation and the older generation of women, where I feel like we are a lot more inclusive. And to me, I think that a lot of the generation before us that are in very high positions or executives, I don't think it's that they didn't want to send the elevator back down. I feel like they just weren't sure how to do it. And they were still trying to claim their own space in this world, right, of inequality. So I think it's about also just, being able to stand in your truth and to freely express that with the world.
I love that. But as we're talking about, because and that is another stereotype, that the generation before us were they giving us a seat at the table? But then I think, like, how did we get here? It was like they had to be tearing down doors and drawing up a chair at the table when nobody was putting them in. And they had to live, love, and matter and take up space.
Not
At
space.
a time where there was no space.
And keep that space and fight to keep the space.
And fight to keep the space so that we could now look around those tables and see many of us gathering around the table. And then, we always have to be thinking, though, in the space that we are in and whatever space of influence, and it is anywhere, from the PTA, in at the office, whatever role you are playing as woman. So, as we're talking about nurturing, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and she was like, she doesn't think she's a natural nurturer. And she's like, but women are supposed to be nurturers. And it's been kind of, just on my mind, these labels of how we're supposed to be. And I think the amazing thing about this time and the time to come is this delabeling. So all of a sudden we realize that we can be tough when we need to be. And some days we can cry, and we can celebrate our ability to cry and break down. We love hard, but we can be fierce, ferocious, like don't miss. Yeah, don't this. And
you know what I think is important to acknowledge?
Sorry, Kat, you were saying?
No, you were breaking up, so I couldn't hear you. Go ahead, Roshi.
Okay. No, I'm saying that after a tough day, we can still pull off that cape, put on another cape, and roll around on the ground with the children. Or in our shoes, in the high heel shoes, go into the kitchen, go cook. And when you're on, like, in this Zoom world where you're seeing women, sometimes when they turn off their camera, they're actually in a class with a kid, and baking, So it's this time that we get to celebrate all that we are. And it's just such a beautiful time that we don't have to be anybody's this particular definition of woman. We can mix up and blend it. So it's like this time, there's no labels. It's like the labelless time.
And also women, I find, are not afraid to voice it.
Yeah.
But I also think we have a much greater platform now than anybody before us had. Mm-hmm. Social media, digital, internet did not exist before now. Right. And so the reality is that we have a much larger platform with much easier access. So I think the accessibility of women in powerful positions is very different from how it was before, just because it's more easily accessible now.
That's true.
You can see them.
Yeah. So emergers, we want to know, what does it mean to be woman? I went to, I always go to funerals before the ban. So I went to the funeral of a colleague, and I know her mother from the Christmas cakes that she bakes. Like, she just bakes these amazing cakes. And at the funeral, I found out that in the 50s, when her son was born, she decided that she was going off to Howard University to go and do her bachelor's. Baby in tow, packed up, leave her husband in Jamaica, see ya, soon come back, with this young baby who was in class with her. Then she goes and pretty much conquers Howard, comes back and is the first of in so many areas. But I know her as his loving, amazing mother. And I remember at the funeral, I was just bawling, bawling, bawling. Because when I thought about the strides she made and how fearless she was to go after what she wanted without sacrificing her child, like she went off, did her thing. And I remember one of the comments that was made was that when she went off, there was like, where she pick up the picnic gone. About. She's a woman.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking, can you imagine, like, it was expected that we would go off and go to higher education. That was expected. So we don't even start to understand the work that has been put in.
For us. Absolutely.
And the commentary and the people, the negative words and the people stopping you. And these women were just like, I'm out.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, guys, this year's theme for International Women's Day, that was actually on Monday, the 8th of March, is about choose to challenge, right? And so, as a challenge world is an alert world, and from challenge comes change. So, let's all choose to challenge. So, I know on the day, a lot of people were basically talking about the ways in which they choose to challenge. And a lot of the key topics are around gender equality and celebrating women's achievements and raising the awareness against bias and taking action for equality. But what I would love to know from each of you is, and I'm going to ask this to, the guests that are watching as well, is what do you choose to challenge? And I'll start with Catherine.
Oh, my Lord. So
Catherine's doing a lot on social media these days. So let's
a lot.
Over to you, Kat.
So, I think the first thing is that we need to understand that, especially in Jamaica, since this is where most of us are, where the three of us live, is that we think that we're such a progressive country because we've had a prime minister that's a female. We have so many women in leadership positions in Jamaica. You see women of strength and power in, everywhere you turn. And so we just think that everything is good. But when you actually think about it, when it really matters, when you encounter women that are experiencing domestic violence, when you encounter girls that are being raped and, well, let me not say the word rape, sexually assaulted, because rape is actually, the most antiquated definition in Jamaica. Rape is literally penetration. Like, that's the only thing that rape is classified as in Jamaica. And domestic violence is, there's no protection against domestic violence. And you don't know that until you're in a position to seek help. And that's when it becomes too late. And so if somebody assaults me and I file a restraining order, what they call a protection order in Jamaica, if I break that protection order, it costs me 10,000 Jamaican dollars or 6 months in jail. That can prevent nobody from murder. Just I say. And so for me, we've been through so many administrations, and it makes me wonder if gender is actually of any consequence to any of us, or if it has just become culturally acceptable for us to behave the way that we behave. A husband cannot even rape his wife. The only way it's considered rape, and Russia might be able to expand on the laws more, but the only way it's considered rape is if there's like a period of separation, or there's like so many different things that need to be attached to if I tell you that him raped me and because I'm married, it's not rape.
Over to you, the lawyer, Rochelle.
Sexual harassment is not even a real thing in Jamaica. It doesn't even exist. We have no law for sexual harassment.
We do. We have sexual harassment legislation. So let me tell you, I think one of the things I would choose to challenge is that we also have to be hyper aware of what is available. So, notwithstanding that it's a fine of 10,000, I've prosecuted many cases of breaches of protection orders. Many cases, and this was back in the DAY. And I'm telling you, the issue too is that as women, we have to be willing to come forward. And our legislations are not gender specific. They're not. Those legislations aren't. So the thing is that we have to be willing to come forward. We have to be willing to stay the course, and we have to be willing to believe each other. Penetration for rape is not what is antiquated. What is antiquated is corroboration, because it is required that it has to be corroborated, meaning somebody have it, and that you made a first report to someone about it. So the thing about it is we challenge the laws a lot, but I have seen cases come before a court that jurors will look and say, "What the little girl there, our breast them look round. The man must think she's a big woman."
Wow.
She's not. No, there's nothing big woman about. So sometimes I think what we do is we are quarreling about the legislation itself, but the process, which sometimes includes us as citizens sitting.
100%.
So I can tell you, when people come to me to sign their juror paper to say that they're sick, don't carry it to me because I'll tear it up because you're not sick. Not do you? So if we, as the persons, the well-thinking Jamaicans, we supposed to go to big school them and I think, and we sit on the veranda with wine, I talk about everything we're bad. And then when it is time that we can take a stand, we're like, I'm busy, I'm the executive. No.
But we do have a systematic problem in Jamaica, because the reality is that, so I do work at the juvenile facility, right? And I'm sure you guys have heard me say this before. You go to the juvenile facilities and you're there to supposedly mentor these young ladies, right? They do their time, they go back into their communities, and they do whatever it takes to come back into the juvenile facility because it's where they feel safe. They don't have a dollar cent for them.
Let's not generalize, because sometimes, and that's the part of it that is a challenge for me too, that we generalize.
What we're generalizing?
That they all want to come back into the system.
No. What I'm saying is, it's not they want to come back into the system because it's where they feel safe. It's where they feel secure. Because when they go, of course, but what I'm saying is, we have a culture now where the Don just sent for you, your mother selling you. I had a case where a young lady and her mother came to me. She was 15 years old, and the company I was working for at the time had her on scholarship. And the father has now told her that at 15 years old, he's no longer taking care of her, so she's old enough to go and sell herself. And this has become a part of our culture and the way that we think. My daughter, she was sexually abused numerous times by people that were close to her in her family. And her parents thought that it was in everybody's best interest not to report it. And that's a cultural problem that we have.
I've been a prosecutor, so I've seen both sides of it. I've seen where mothers have come and challenged whether or not anything happened to their daughters. I've seen mothers also come, more mothers than on the other side, that come and the child has been raped by somebody in their family and they are willing to be ostracized by everybody to take care of their daughters. So I also think that as we are pushing forward as women, we also have to celebrate, because I have dealt with some fearless women in those courts. When I tell you, when the people gather up outside to beat them because they choose to challenge, and they are like, you have to kill me over my child. And I have more women like that will sell their daughters. And
I agree.
That's why this day too is important, because it is true that sometimes we put everybody in this big bundle. And let me tell you, is a lot of people out there fighting. And I keep having to ask myself every day, when you get up, Rochelle, what are you doing to make a difference? And that's what I'm challenging with myself. I choose to challenge my own procrastination. I choose to challenge my own sit on the sidelines, talk about what's going wrong, and not doing enough to make a difference when I have a platform.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
I think for me, some of the things that I choose to challenge are the conversations that women have with each other, right? We always talk about on Emerge having, your tribe of genius and, having your circle of genius and the people around you to support you and all these things. And I'm in a lot of tribes. I mentioned it on my Instagram post recently. I'm in so many different tribes, but I do find that as women, we don't talk about the things that really matter, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of skirt over the serious things. And I know we'll get into some more detail throughout tonight's show, but we don't talk with each other about salaries. We don't talk with each other about negotiations. We don't really talk with each other about our relationships. We talk about the great things or when things are not so okay, but we don't really ask for help. Mm-hmm. When many of us are hurting and we just choose to say, we're good. One of the things I think about all the time is when we see someone that we haven't seen in a while and we're like, hey, Catherine, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you, Naomi? I'm good. It's the automatic response. Yeah. A lot of the times we're not good, but we choose not to share. And I think that's also a part of the way that women are raised and how we grow up. You don't share your business and you don't talk about money and you don't talk about these things. And so I want to choose to challenge women and myself to be willing to have those hard conversations, to be willing to be vulnerable, and to be willing to ask for help when it matters. Because we don't know everything, we can't do everything. And I find that a lot of my peers, women, are more comfortable having these conversations with men. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but why are we not able to have those conversations with these women that we see are our friends or our peers or our tribe? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of one of the things that I really want to challenge are the kinds of conversations that we have together as women.
Mm. Yeah. Alicia says that she chooses to challenge men to remove barriers that they see or allow to continue by not standing up against them as progress takes both genders. Absolutely. 100%. It takes us all. Guitar. Rashi, you want to go for that one?
Guitar Mayan. Vincent, support the young ladies in school through an alumni association, helping the young ladies in troubled homes, that is with stepdads, etc. That is so true because, and I'm glad that he mentioned alumni associations. Mm-hmm. I found that a lot more girls' schools, traditional Jamaican girls' schools, you're hearing a lot more from the alumni associations. Yeah. But our boys' schools have always had such a history of alumni associations, mm-hmm. So that mentorship has almost become in their bloodstream.
It's the norm.
It's the norm. I'm seeing a lot more of that happen now, but it's almost as if we are playing catch up.
Yes.
With the alumni associations and the power of the alumni associations on affecting that next generation. So that's an excellent point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Immaculate has an all girls association that has a mentorship program. So every month we have a structured program that we go in and we basically adopt a class for the year and you walk through with them. It could be for 5 years, could be for 2, depending on where you start. But one thing that I do realize with the alumni associations for the women versus the men is that the men really invest a lot of money. More, maybe not as much time, but a lot more money in terms of developing infrastructure, in terms of, developing different programs. And I think that is something that we need to start to really pay more focus on. So, I mean, like for us, Like St. Andrew High School has an amazing new program where new is relative because it's been around for a little while, but where they're focused. Yes, I'm speaking about your school, Naomi. That has like a leadership development focus where they bring in people from outside to come and mentor the young ladies that are in 5th and 6th form to help them with career decisions, leadership, all kinds of different training, you know?
And we also have a mentorship program as well. It's almost like a big sister program. I'm a part of that, and we're assigned a student, and we pretty much mentor them for the year.
Yeah.
Tishika says, I choose to challenge women to support each other and not tear each other down. Women are harder on other women instead of supporting us.
Wow.
Oh, that's very hurtful.
No, but that, and there's a lot of truth in that. I've just been sitting down thinking about my own experiences with my friendships. And you guys know how I am with friendships. Like, if he's my friend, like when you is my friend, you is like my friend, like my sister, my blood. And people know that I will rip people apart with my bare hands for you. Yeah. And what I have found is, I think even with my friendships, and just all of us have these different tribes.
Right.
And I have taken a very deliberate stance on conversation and how I participate. So I've stopped saying that these are how we have conversations, and I'm good and stuff. So I say to myself, sometimes I say I'm good, but I'm not good. But if I want to have the conversation, maybe it would help if I said, I'm not good. Like, hey guys, I'm not good. I'm actually not good and I need some help. So it has meant that I've had to allow myself the vulnerability of not being good. And also that when you know your friend, sometimes even from how they answer the WhatsApp, say they're not good.
Yeah.
And, are we willing to stop a day? Because there are some days that you're busy from morning to evening and you see that WhatsApp, you see that response and you've got to cancel some meetings because that's a cry for help. Are we willing to go behind that veil of I'm good?
Yes.
Is it more fun to have the conversation about Bridgerton than to talk about pay, delve? So, so again, with a lot of the things, nobody's doing that to us. That's not nobody doing anything to us. That's nobody creating a ceiling or a floor or nothing for it. That's us.
Right.
We have to ask ourselves what deliberate attempts, and we're all guilty of it. Because sometimes people conversation is a little bit more fun. Because sometimes that's what you need to.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, Rochelle, is that we don't share the learnings. So let's say I went through an experience and now I am actually good. We don't share about that experience with what worked with the group, right? So like you, I have been a little bit more deliberate with some of my groups of friends to start initiating those types of conversations from my own personal experiences, because I'm just like, if I had this situation or I'm going through this thing, there must be somebody else in my group of so many that may be going through something similar, and then we can learn from each other as well. But if we don't say anything and everything's good,
and everybody's good,
everything's good, right?
So my girlfriend made a post. My girlfriend made a post today, and she said that she's an attorney. She has a really good job, and she was saying, she thought about it today, and she realized that she only posts what she wants people to see. And we all post what we want people to see.
Absolutely.
And so she posts her Louboutins, but she don't post when she cut out coupons. She posts when she's living her best life, but when she's eating cereal at home, she don't post that. And so it really made us stop to think about, when you see based on what Nai's saying, when you see what people are sharing, it sometimes is not a true reflection of what they're actually experiencing.
Guys, we have 24 hours in a day. and we share a post that takes us like 30 seconds to post. It's a screenshot of our lives. That's what it is. And it's the screenshot that we have curated for you to see. Yes. And that's what social media is. And so people have to remember that when they see people living their hashtag best lives every day, you living your hashtag best life every single day? Yeah. That cannot be possible. So we kind of have to, and that's why even something as simple as not going straight to social media as you wake up in the morning, right? Because it can trigger. You can see something that you think is this amazing thing, and then you start saying, oh my God, why am I not living this life? Why am I not going to Tulum, I can't pronounce it, right? Why am I not living my best life too? You don't know what people did to get to this stage, or maybe they were going to eat tuna for the rest of the next 3 months so that they could do this trip. We don't know. We only see what people show us. So we have to be very, very mindful of that and pay more attention to what's happening in our own lives and our own space.
So let's go ahead.
Sorry, Nai. Sorry, Kat. What I've been thinking about living your best life, because I've struggled with this concept. Like, what is this living your best life? Because there's an image of living your best life. Yeah. But living your best life is actually living your best life. So it also means that you have to know what my best life, at whatever stage I'm at, what does that mean to me? What does that mean for me?
Yes.
And one of the things is that social media is the true equalizer, because both men and women are affected by other people's best life. And watching people's lives on the sidelines when you need to jump into the arena there and live for your own life. So it is the true equalizer, because a lot of us are struggling with that, But do women struggle more with it? Do women struggle more than men with the influence of social media?
That's a good question. I think it could be possible, because I guess if you could say that based on the frequency of how, the amount of women versus men that are on social media that are constantly posting, and the frequency of the posts, right? So I definitely think women post more than men, for sure.
But we also feel differently. I mean, in terms of emotion, we feel differently from men. So even if it's for a moment, you have a reaction to something that you see. It could be a happy reaction. It could be a grudgeful reaction. It could be a sad reaction. And I think that we just generally evoke more emotion. So maybe some things affect us more. Like I saw a post that one of my friends made, and it made me cry. That's not an emotion that I intended to experience from social media. So I actually do think that we are more we could, from a personal perspective, I am definitely more impacted from having such ease of access to different things, Yeah,
you have to protect your space, mental space. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, like Rashi said, it's Women's History Month, and we had International Women's Day on Monday. And of course, when March comes around, the whole world focuses on women. So we're grateful. And that means that we get to see all the studies that are coming out. And Harvard Business Review actually did a study on women in leadership and discovered that women were actually better leaders. And then they decided this year that they were going to focus on COVID and look at women in crisis, and are women better leaders than men in crisis? And so they looked at it from several perspectives. So the first perspective was the number of cases and the number of deaths that were systematically better in countries led by women. So the women-led countries actually had fewer numbers of cases and fewer deaths than anybody else. And then the second study looked at the governors in the United States that were female governors versus male governors, and what the stats looked like. And again, there were fewer cases for women-led states. So they looked at different competencies of leadership. So they did a breakdown. They did personal interviews with people. I think it was over 60,000 people, if my memory serves me correctly, that they interviewed. So they literally asked 60,000 people their views of their leadership. And they broke it down by competencies. And some of the competencies that they looked at, asking people what were the competencies that were important to you in leadership at this time. So they didn't give them any
parameters.
Right, exactly. It was just tell me what are the skills that you think your leaders need to have in a time of crisis. And notably, respondents put together importance on interpersonal skills, people that inspire and motivate, that communicate powerfully, collaboration, teamwork, relationship building, all of which women were rated high on. Their analysis echoed that exactly what the researchers found, that female leaders expressed more awareness of fears and followers might have felt. So they were more concerned about their well-being, and they were a lot more confident in their plans because they felt like their leaders cared about them. So whatever they intended for us to do, it had to be in our best interest. And so from the study, I think some of the things that we found most valuable in the data is that throughout the crisis, hearing from thousands of people directly about what they valued, based on the data, they wanted leaders who were able to pivot, who were able to learn quickly, learn new skills quickly, who emphasized the employee development, who, even though they might be tough at times, they were always looking out for the best interests of the employees, who displayed integrity and honesty, and who were sensitive and understanding of stress, anxiety, frustration that somebody else was feeling. Their analysis showed that these were the traits that most women displayed. And so it's very interesting that that when we think about women, some of the stereotypes that we've heard is that we're emotional and that we're soft and we care about people too much. But in the research, it's showing that this is what people actually appreciate about having female leaders. So do we, is it bad that we might be soft? Is it that we're, do we now challenge the stereotype that being too soft does not make us good leaders?
Or do we challenge the stereotype of what makes a good leader?
Yeah. And what is soft? Because, what is soft?
And what is that? And then, you spoke about the fact that a lot of the data proved that the women seem to be able to handle crises better based on this report. And if you really, really think about it, women are managing crises every single day, just in their households, right? With all the little challenges that come up within the home, at work, with children. Every day we're outing or managing these situations. So I think what happens is it makes it easier for us to even transition that into the business world because it's just a part of what we do naturally.
We're used to solving problems.
It's not seen as a benefit or a leadership trait until we get reports like this that actually have actual factual data that supports that.
Yeah. And I think it is too that what you just said, Nai, that the definition of what makes a good leader has been transforming and is transitioning because people now are willing to stop to say that it matters to me how I feel. So from Maslow's hierarchy from back in the day, those things did matter, but we just never did reach the point there in the hierarchy. I remember years ago, I was dealing with a particular matter. And as we were going through and I was expressing myself, I remember one of the men in the room was like, "Oh my God, Rochelle is so passionate and emotional." And I paused for a while and I was like, everybody was kind of like, "Ooh."
Let me get the popcorn.
Let me duck.
And I stopped.
So it's gonna start.
Yeah, and I thought about it, and my response was, "You are right. I am passionate and I am emotional, and it's part of my makeup. So I have had to choose to challenge that passion. And no, passion is sexy. Passion is like hot. Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. That's a key factor now when applying for a job.
Those are buzzwords now.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence.
Because we realize that we are not leading machines, we are leading people, and people do have feelings. So when people say women are soft, I actually think that I am a caring leader. I don't know what soft is, though. So I'm not sure what soft is.
Or it means that you're emotionally intelligent, Rochelle. That's what it.
But within my emotional intelligence and within my care, when a certain level of discourse is required, I'm gonna have it. I will have the hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I will approach them differently because we're still gonna have hard conversations with dignity, because I always ask myself the question, how would I feel? How would I receive this conversation? And yes, I will think about it more. And yes, I have put my foot in my mouth on many an occasion. And it also means that I have had to go and apologize. Not apologize in an off manner way, like the thing I said a while ago, I shouldn't have said it. No, I was wrong. I was wrong. And I am apologizing. But again, I know women like that, and I know men too like that. I know some leaders who are not good leaders. But one of the things that I've found recently is that when I've gone into organizations, I usually can tell, and I always say I can tell from the team what the leader is like. And a lot of times I can tell from the team if it's a female leader. There is a certain openness that I find that women engender in their leadership. And especially now that we are able to have those conversations about your children, like it don't make you weak, that like Simone Mahaber, that you say, Simone, how are the boys? And you know their names. You know that they got JC. You know that one is doing CSEC. Because we also recognize too, as leaders generally, that people want to know that they matter in the same way you personally want to matter. So I think the stereotypes of leadership are changing. And I don't know if we recognize as women how much we are the contributors to that stereotype changing.
And I think it is, Rochelle, that people, as you said, we're all people, right? And we want a feeling of connection.
Yes.
At the end of the day, that's what we crave, to be connected to others. And I say this all the time in my personal branding coaching sessions. Tony Robbins always says that people are not in the business of buying goods and services; they're in the business of feelings and connections and emotions. Mm-hmm. That's what we gravitate towards. Sometimes even as it relates to purchasing a product, we'll support something because we like the person that makes it, and not necessarily because it's a great product.
We want the product, absolutely.
Right. So it is very important. Yeah. And I think we're not afraid to show the emotion. Well, I think we're becoming less afraid to show those settings. Yeah. It's becoming more acceptable. Maybe that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So since we're on this topic now, that Catherine had broken down for us around leadership in the workplace, we want to jump straight into a topic that we talk about all the time, but we don't really talk about. And that's pay. It's about pay, it's about negotiations, it's about asking for what you are worth. It's about understanding what your value is and how to communicate it, and not being afraid to say, I need to be paid X. And I'll tell you, even from personal experience, those few times as an entrepreneur that I wanted to jump back into the corporate world, and I have been headhunted or applied for jobs at various stages throughout my 12-year journey of entrepreneurship. And I have always gone to men for advice about pay, about package, about benefits. And they have always been so willing to just go down into the details to break down how those things work. I found now at this age, and maybe within the last 5 years, I have a couple friends that are very open to having these conversations as well. So if I have a team member that's seeking employment, there are women I can go to now that are still in this corporate space that I can get really solid advice. But I still think, as we discussed earlier, we don't talk about this enough. And I saw someone post something this week, and I see it every day as well with women, even when we're applying for jobs. We're not going to apply for that job until we can tick every single box on the checklist in the job application. But men will maybe have 4 out of the 10 things, and they're like, yo, that's my job. I'm the man.
And you could have 9 and don't apply for it.
Have 9 out of the 10, and we're not going to apply for it because we need that one more thing. As a matter of fact, we need 11 things. Why do we do that?
LinkedIn actually did a study about this exact thing, about entitlement. They did a study, and I was reading it this week, and it was crazy when you got to see the results. Women less than male, far less than men, feel as entitled for promotion. They feel entitled. They don't feel entitled for promotion. They don't feel entitled for pay increase. It's like you just wait your turn. You're comfortable. Women don't negotiate or actively seek a raise. And I just found it to be so interesting because my experience in corporate, I had never had to negotiate until I had to. So I was just existing, going into corporate space for the first time. I came because I got an opportunity. I knew they couldn't pay me, but I wanted the experience to decide if I wanted to stay in Jamaica or not. So when they came back to me now and said, okay, it's been 5 months and I want you to stay, they made me an offer, and I was like, oh, haha, you thought I was going to actually work for you for this amount of money? No. And so I left. But the problem is that a lot of people are not willing to walk away. And even at that time, I still didn't know what people actually paid for those positions. I just knew that it wasn't enough money for me to live. And that's how I made my decision. So when I left and came back, the second time I was offered a position there, they came to me and the CEO said, I'm creating this new department and you are who I want to head it. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And he just said, this is the compensation, this is whatever. And I didn't bother to look at, what was comparable in that space or anything like that. I just knew I was satisfied with the amount of money that it was. The next year, my salary doubled because I moved to another position, and I'm like, wait, your salary can jump so much? And then after that, I found a lady, her name is Rochelle Cameron. And I made sure to call her when I actually had to negotiate a contract for the first time in my life. Because why? I got burnt. I took somebody at their word that made me an offer and said, I can pay this today in December, but in April, I'm going to raise your salary. And April came and went. July came and went. And August, when I finally said, sir, remember this? And he's like, buck shuffling. I said, okay, well, here's my resignation to go along with it. Right? And then I got another offer, and I called Rochelle this time and I said, well, for the first time in my life, I actually need to negotiate a contract.
But Catherine, that's the thing. I mean, as I'm listening, and I have these varying views on this area because I'm teaching with men and women, and I actually think we have a cultural issue talking about money.
Absolutely.
Yes, man, woman, not my nephew Kyle. He has no cultural issues asking for large sums of money. We do have a cultural issue, and I think our generation, we've seen a lot more, so we think we should have the conversation more now about money. But men, I think, are more naturally wired to press on that money issue. Two, because they tend to consider themselves the leader of the house or the breadwinner in the house. But what is happening now is a lot more women are not even necessarily the breadwinner, but are highly qualified persons.
Certainly.
The next round for us is to have the conversation confidently about money, to be able to walk away from negotiations, kind of walk away from negotiations. Because I tell people all the time, when you take that job for a salary that you do not think is compensating you for the work that you do, you start disliking the people them and them work. Let people them no go there. Don't go there. Go make them take somebody who's gonna pay, who's gonna take it. Or having taken it, you have taken a decision that this is the pay I'm gonna get, and know that you're not going to get what you were asking for before, and it's gonna take a while. So it always befuddles me that when I say, have you gotten the contract yet? Yeah, and I look at it, and I say, who looked at it for you? Who looked at it for you? Somebody promised you these things and they wrote it where? Where is it? I don't see it here. And when that person is no longer in that role, talk to me. Well, are you gonna get that thing? But that's not one problem, because what I find too is the men will have that negotiation and they don't read what is on the actual paper. They don't read it. So I do think, one, we do have, and it's not just a Jamaican thing. I think as Black people,
global,
struggled over the years to see our worth and to know what to ask for. I have a good friend who had a job on Wall Street, and he told me a story about getting his bonus at the end of the year. And he said when he got his bonus, he was like, I couldn't be them again the money. Lord Jesus, I'm gonna tell them it's the wrong check, because we don't want to take the money and then go draw it back out of my pay because I couldn't mind. So he says he goes to the head of HR, who is this wizened little Caucasian lady, who says, come son, sit down, close the door. And without it being a racial thing, he's like, this is a Black issue that I'm going to beat out of you. She's like, none of your colleagues came in here to ask me whether or not this was the right amount. In fact, they came to say this was the wrong amount, because they know they should have gotten 3 times more than this. You are the only one who has thought that you've gotten more. And even in discussions with him about pay, he is like, ask yourself, what is your worth for this job? Ask yourself, ask what it is paid overseas, and don't be afraid to ask people about ballpark. So when people call me and ask me about pay, I talk to them about pay. Some people come to them and give a range that the job, well, I earn between 6 and 12 million. That is not a range. 6 and 12 is not a range. That is not a range. And I'm just like, what we are not going to be moving if we're not going to be sharing these conversations. And that person, you have to know to even how to talk about what this means, what this exit clause means. At certain levels of employment, you're supposed to get paid when you're exiting. Like what? Well, who is having these conversations? So
listen, I didn't know the other day a friend of mine was
that we have this platform so that we can start this conversation and have it, because we're gonna have the conversation. Sorry, Nai.
Rush, a friend of mine was negotiating a contract, and when she told me that she got a signing offer, I didn't know that those things happened in Jamaica. Remember, also, I mean, I have my own company, so I don't know what's happening in this corporate space. But I was like, I mean, I hear about stuff like that, but I didn't know this was a thing in Jamaica. And I was just like, do people know this? Like you can get a check just for signing the contract before even starting, just to say, I got you, I'm in.
But nobody's not is talking about that.
Don't talk about it.
It's the same way that when you're negotiating jobs and stuff, you know, and you hear that you're going to get X, Y, Z. You sit down in the meeting and you write down X, Y, Z, and then you walk out of the meeting and skin your teeth. Here, you know, look how much money. Where is it written down? You know, said to the people, then please send me an email. And when they send you the email with what they really mean, they ask. But in the meeting, we talked about X and Y. I don't see them here. And then sometimes they come back and so them did say.
Yes.
that translating into your contract? Somebody said something very important here, that we are very good at researching car and house, but we don't go research company.
Salary. It's true. Stephanie said that culturally she finds that salaries to be so hush hush. You know, people don't like to share information about how much money they're being paid in their sector. It's true.
Yeah.
It's a reality, you know.
Well, one of my team members, one of my PR chicks got headhunted for a really great job. And, you know, people are surprised that she came to me about it after she spoke to her mother as the second person she spoke to. And I was so proud of her, but of course she didn't even know where to start, you know, for that role. And so I just started calling all of my friends in corporate to find out, what do you guys currently pay for this role? What are some of the benefits? What's in the package, whatever. And I basically prepped her for that interview for when she got to the part about compensation, that this is what she needs. These are the benefits, whether it's car, allowance, blah, 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 which she would not have gone into that interview. Like you said, she would have probably just gone with a range that she would have just probably just taken out of what she thinks it should be, not actually knowing that people actually get paid this, plus they get this and this and this and this and this.
But you know, let me tell you, I got a crash course in negotiation from the Rochelle Cameron, and I want to tell you that it for me was the most empowering experience that I can say in my entire corporate life. Honestly, I walked into a room with 3 owners of the company across the table from me with a contract that I literally marked up with a pen and said, "This is not what we discussed." And, you know, it's like intimidation tactics where they bring you into a room and it's you alone sitting down across the table from them. And it's like they don't expect you to be bold enough to say, "This is not what I want."
Yes.
And then start to tell you who in the company does not make that money. And I said, "But I didn't ask you what you are paying anybody else."
And that's the thing, that's why, but you know, though, because I always say, when we're having these discussions, you know, we can't go in with a broke mentality, you know, we can't go in with a broke mindset. Because if you go with a broke mindset, like the first money you hear sound big, you know, start, you know, working out of what this job means, how much more responsibilities. So
your time.
Exactly. So even when people say the question is usually asked, and I've worked in HR, like, what did you make before? And I've sat in an interview, and in fact, Kimberly says millennials are more willing to share salary information. I've sat in an interview where the young lady said, "That is of no moment to this conversation."
Correct.
I was like, we didn't want to give her a gun salute.
But you know what's funny, Rashid? I had a similar situation, right? And I asked the young lady how much money she would like to make, and what she referenced was how much money she used to make, which was also a lie. And I had done my research.
That is a question. That's a question we should be asking.
Yeah, how much do you want?
How much do you want? Because the salary comparison, because it's almost as if you're saying, because you got 4 million there, you could not expect to get more than 4.5 because percentage wise, this is the percentage increase. Stephanie, abundance for real. So it's better than if you're going to be afraid to have the conversation about the amount that you're seeking, then stay where you are. Because let me tell you, and guys, bar none, every single time. Sometimes when I tell people what they should be asking for, I've had a friend, when I told her what she should be asking for, she didn't speak to me for a week. First, she burst into tears because she's like, "You've got to be kidding. You don't want me to get this job." And then she just didn't speak to me. So, you know, me unrelenting. I am like, "This if I ask for." And she walked in there and she asked for it, and they were yes. And she said,
"I do think that we do need
to say, and I need X, Y, and Z." Because what you do is that you go in and you start the work at -10 because you feel like you've been cheated. But they haven't cheated you. You accepted an offer. You accepted an offer. It's on us. It's on us.
So I think we do need to balance the conversation, though, especially when Kimberly referenced millennials. I think it's important for us to understand that we need to know our value and what we're bringing to the table. But at the same time, we need to be realistic about our expectations. So I've interviewed many people coming out of university, and they're asking for starting salaries of $7 million with absolutely no work experience. And you kind of have to help them to understand that as much as you value them, the reality is that they have not been tried. And so we need to test the waters for want of a better,
and there'll be a lot of training to do as well.
Absolutely. But you know what?
But Catherine, when you have a 22-year-old leaving university, one of the things that I do criticize for our university system, and I'm a full product, I'm a proud product of
the Jamaican, educational system.
Yeah, you know that. But I don't recall anyone having a conversation with me about pay.
Yeah.
Loretta says, I think the issue is we have a grateful mindset, so we accept whatever we are given. That is
yes, I agree. So we're so grateful for the opportunity instead of, but I deserve this. Like this.
And
I'm an asset to you.
I'm an asset to your company.
Yeah. And the flip side of it is when we are now in the position where we are the one negotiating the salary, meaning on the company's benefit, we have to be very careful too. So there's the one side that someone is coming out with no experience, and it's a crazy thing but I like their boldness. Because I love those bold. I'm like, it's so bold.
Yes.
I don't know, but bold. I like it. But like we're not. It's almost it's like a grudgeful mindset that like when the people them asking for it, we almost address back like, oh, you gonna ask for so much money? Who are you? So on the other side of the table, we have to ask ourselves, how do we behave on the other side of the conversation? Yeah. How do we behave on it? Are we empowering? Are we having a real negotiation with people, or are we looking down at them and saying, woman, how can you even be asking for that?
Yeah.
And when we're on the other side of the table, are we also ensuring that there is gender equality with pay?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, so I'm going to share an experience, right? So Guitar Man says, I heard a gentleman share that men are more aggressive and women will not demand as much as men do, hence the disparity. So they train the women and they end up getting more money. So I had an experience because in my mind, I was like, this pay gap is not a real thing. And if you're in the same position, then naturally you're going to get paid the same amount of money until reality set in. And I had a team that of two young ladies that had been with me for 3 years. One person was working with the company for 12 years prior to that. And I was hiring somebody and I was doing interviews and I was looking for somebody. And a young man came to me. He had his bachelor's in marketing, master's in marketing, but no work experience. But, he did his own events and he had some understanding of brands and logistics in terms of execution and stuff. So I said, all right, can boss you. Anyway, I was leaving the organization at the time, but I had negotiated a salary increase for my team. And it was like pulling teeth. They didn't agree to what I requested for them, but it was more. So I spoke to them about it and they said, well, like Loretta said, we're grateful for the increase. And so, we know that you tried. I left the organization and they ended up hiring the young man. The young man had actually asked me for $7 million to start. He didn't get the $7 million, but he got more than what the young ladies that were in the same position, but more senior now because they had been there for 3 years, understand the culture of the company and had established themselves already. And he came in and got more money than them. When I found that out, I nearly popped a blood vessel.
But the question is though, who did that?
The managing director of the company.
No, but
the same managing director that I negotiated with.
Because I think one of the things too, again, is we have to ask ourselves, and you know how I am. I'm always like, okay, make we not ask ourselves what happens in these situations. So you were outside the company at the time, so there's not much that you could have done.
I definitely did something though.
However, when we are in the company, are we hyper alert to those disparities? Do we contribute to those disparities? Is it that we are subject to those disparities? So we are like, so me never get no more money, so you mustn't get no more money. So something has to give, like something seriously has to give. But it goes back to a nice point. Are we even having the conversation about what we should be getting?
Are we? Yeah. And do we discuss? I asked in 2 groups of females about their salaries. Now, I'm obviously not in competition with any of them because I have my own company. None of them do what I do. But I was curious because it was one of those conversations. I was reading this book called I'm a Badass About Money. And it's one of the things that they said, you should have these conversations. That's also I was looking for when you saw me turning. I was like, is this book up here? I think I lent it to somebody. And it said, we have to have these conversations. And when I started asking the questions, I think maybe one person sent me back a message with what their salary was. Now, how can we even look out for opportunities for each other if we don't even know what it is you're making right now? So I can't even tell you if what you're doing is really, really great, or to say, girl, you could be making 5 times
more money. Yeah.
No. And as Auntie Normadell said, fear and complacency is one of the things as well. It's sometimes it's not even a great, but it's like I am comfortable and I don't want to step past my place. But we have to do the research and we have to ask these questions.
Exactly.
That's why instead of sitting there and saying, oh my God, this millennial just came into the company and they're getting twice my salary. Because you never ask.
Did you even ask?
And say, hey, girl, I'm going to double your salary tomorrow. No, if you are comfortable taking this salary, I'm definitely going to continue paying you this salary. I mean, not me. But,
yeah, but that's what happened. That's what happens. And the other side of it too is when we're having the conversation about salary, we are very money focused.
Yeah.
What's just on the pay slip. So we're not elevating the conversation to ask the deep questions about how the bonus package works. Can I negotiate my bonus package based on the work that I know some people that take less on the basic salary, and they're like, if I'm going to send you some KPIs, and if I deal with those KPIs, this is a percentage that I'm getting.
Also, as he said, I didn't, like, someone may be watching this and saying, I didn't even know I could negotiate my bonus package.
You can.
We don't have these conversations.
You can negotiate everything.
Yeah, the only thing
in my contract if it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And the thing is, though, we also have to be willing to know what we are willing to walk away from.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people.
What our value is.
Yeah. 100%. But you see, that's the problem. The problem is that a lot of us, because of the same fear that Auntie Normadell was talking about, is, well, what if I don't get another job offer, or what, and you start to process all the negativity in your head without thinking about, well, what if a better opportunity comes along if I say no to this one? Yeah. And that is the thing.
Yeah, true. And then we're like, oh my gosh, but it's a little bit more money, and if we could have paid off car loan faster, so let me just take it. And I really want, but let me just take it. You haven't done the math on it, but let me just take it. And it is that fair. Things like when at certain levels, and again, it's negotiation. Are people even asking for things like share options? Are you having a conversation like, what's your share option policy?
Yep.
So just like how much money me getting on the payslip. We need to elevate the conversation and ask some more questions. Ask some more questions. So like, are there share options available? Um, the bonus policy. What is your policy on training and development? Will you want me to go to school? Do you bond me? How does that work? Do you give me time? Ask the questions. So, but and then what happens too is that the HR is not used to sometimes getting the question. So the two people ask the question, they're like, even working hours, you can negotiate working hours.
Even vacation, you can negotiate vacation. Yep, you can negotiate anything. And the problem is that everybody needs to accept that negotiation only takes place before you accept the job. Any negotiation after the fact is a dead case until you are in a position to leverage again.
Exactly.
You
But
know?
even as we're talking about negotiation, I know for some people, a hand of favor has touched your heart and you can't even breathe. Because you're saying to yourself, can I really negotiate? Guitar, my honesty, ladies, how do you balance home, kids, mother, wife? Please touch this question if you don't mind.
So I don't fall into any of those categories. I will leave that to Rochelle and Naomi to answer for you.
Kat?
Yes.
You sound like a monster.
Can you hear me now?
Like a monster, though.
Sign out and come back in.
You and I were just like, whoa, what's happening? That's a good question.
Any better?
Nope, no cat.
Okay.
That's a good question. To me, I find balance to be, it's a challenging word for me. I don't ever feel like I am balancing, because to balance means everything is equal, and it's never equal. If you're paying attention to one thing, that means you're not giving the other thing as much as attention. But for me, as a mom and as an entrepreneur and as a boss and as a person that currently runs my household, I just try to do the best that I can in each area and give each area as much attention as possible. The other thing I need to balance is myself, right? Because I need to be able to function in order to do all these things. And I think sometimes we leave ourselves out of that balancing equation. So you see, the question was, how do you balance home, kids, mother, wife, etc.? How do you balance yourself? When do you take some time to catch up, to read a book, to drink a cup of coffee, to take a vacation, to just lie down in your bed for 15 more minutes? And sometimes that I think is the bigger piece of the puzzle that's missing, right? They say you can't pour from an empty cup. And a lot of us, with what is happening right now in this pandemic, are on empty. But we're still trying to do everything. And so I find that burnout is happening more frequently because it has become so much more than a balancing act. It's about just like surviving in many cases. And so we have to find things or other outlets that can help us to, I guess, maintain some kind of normalcy that allows you to operate at an optimum, but also taking care of yourself at the same time. So that's what I've been trying to do. And I find doing little simple things like playing music while I'm working from home, or even just lighting a nice candle, or taking breaks in between my day helps. Or like yesterday, John and I were supposed to watch a movie, but I canceled because I knew that once we started, I'd pass out. But it's about trying to find little things that you can insert into the day that's not just homework, school, cook, clean, life, to make it a little bit more fulfilling at the same time. Rochelle?
I struggle with this balance concept. What Stephanie says, that question raises an interesting point as to the demands on women to be present in multiple areas as opposed to men.
That's why we manage crises.
Yeah. Because we actually were getting to that point. And we are always back and forth on this whole question of balance. So you know that men never get that question about balance.
No. How are you balancing, sir?
No, men don't get that question.
No one ever.
What are you balancing, sir?
We put pressure on ourselves to balance. Like for example, I don't actually think about balance. I think about trying to get stuff done and knowing what needs to get done at what time. Sometimes I find like I will end a day and I'm like, you are superwoman, you girl are awesome. And the next day, I am just like, today, nothing has gone well.
No.
You're alive.
Or nothing has happened at all.
Yes.
Roshi,
says, the key to juggling is to know that some balls you have in the air are plastic and some glass. Focus on catching the glass ones. I love that.
I'm definitely taking a picture of this.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Quote, and in fact, this quote helped me to this whole concept of balancing. So on any given day, you know what's going to require your focus. And sometimes it's going to be work. And sometimes that day, there's something with Christian, there's something with Ajani. One of the things, though, is that I am also now ensuring that I am one of the glass balls.
Yes.
So I do have to ensure that I am treating myself with a certain amount of delicacy. So I found the other day I wasn't spending as much time with my plants. And now that I'm back, the plants, they don't need me as much as I need them.
Yes.
Meditation for me to water is meditation out there. Yeah. But yes, there are lots of balls that you're juggling. And the days, what I would encourage people to do, you know, the day that you rocked it out the ballpark. Because sometimes we focus on the day that was not good. When we rock it out the ballpark, man, take a picture of yourself, post it. You know what I'm saying? So we don't congratulate or
celebrate, right?
Celebrate.
A glass of something or whatever it is.
And this constant pressure that we have to be like super mom. And we see these images of persons who are able to rise early. They may exercise. They are able to make breakfast for the kids while juggling a Zoom call, while being fabulous. And then we look and we hear us stick up all over the place. We barely wake up and we are said to ourselves, oh gosh, I'm the worst. No, I'm as nice as, no, they're not posting that day. They're posting their good day. Their good day.
Or they're posting just one little snippet of the whole day. We don't know what happened before or after that picture.
Exactly. Lauren says, have we fooled ourselves into thinking that we can balance everything?
I feel like it's not even fooled ourselves. It's this. It's just something that we've been hearing all our lives that we must balance. We must be balanced, and we must balance in our lives.
But you know what's funny though? I think
that we must be balanced.
But what does balance actually mean? And I think that that's the greatest challenge. So like I did a presentation today on this exact topic. Is balance real or is it a myth? And I said, you know what? Let me actually look up the definition of balance. And so, of course, the definition was there about equal, which is one that we all know. And it said, or appropriate allocation of. So are we assigning the appropriate allocation to the different areas of our lives? And that is it. You know, today, you know, that 90% of our time might be spent on our career. Tomorrow, maybe 20% and 20% is spent on our health and wellness, and maybe, you know, whatever, maybe the rest of it is just, it doesn't get done today. And maybe tomorrow is the day that I don't do any work and I spend the whole day at the beach, and that contributes to my spiritual wellness, my mental wellness, my physical health. I get to read a book, so that adds to my knowledge, whatever it is. But the thing is, you know, it's about how we're now allocating our talent, our time, and our treasure. Because that is what really creates the balance. What are the things that are important to us?
Oh, I like talent, time, and treasure.
And how are we allocating those things to the things that are important to us? Because that is how we determine now what actually matters. And I think a lot of the time we get so caught up in just doing all the time that we don't actually stop to think about, is this something that I even need to be doing?
Why am I even doing it? Well, that's why Lorian's question is a damn good question. She's like, but where does that come from? Who told us that? Who told us that we need to be balanced?
Nah, that book, the one thing. That book, the one thing that all of us read. And it goes back to that, you know.
It's right over there.
This activity that we're doing right now, is it adding to or taking away from the things that matter to us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's your one thing?
And then maybe we will actually be able to start to allocate the time and the talent and the treasure to the things that matter.
Ooh, look at what Esther put up there. Esther
We're so focused on being human beings and not human beings.
100%.
And Kimberly, book, What I Know Now, Letters to My Younger Self, a collection of letters from women. Excellent. Thanks for that, Kimberly.
But yeah, see, Shayna says we need to allow ourselves grace. Understand that it's not everything we must take on all at once.
Mm-hmm. And is it that we don't do it well, it's still okay?
Yeah. No, but have we, is it that we've gotten like so deep and have so much labels on things? We have balance, who is supermom from who is not, and all of these things. Like, you know, sometimes all we can do is just cut and go through, just literally, just cut and go through. And as Shayna says, allow yourself grace, which is also allow yourself forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like some things got done, some things didn't. It doesn't mean you're unbalanced. Some things got done and some things didn't.
100%.
And effort to be balanced, it also helps us to realize the things that we need to say no to.
Mm-hmm.
So like, as I'm listening to this conversation, there's a project that I'm supposed to be signing off to do. And I'm just like, I don't have the bandwidth. I can't. Sorry.
No is an answer. It's an entire sentence. Absolutely, Kimberly. No is an entire sentence. And that's what a lot of us get. So this leads us into my next question that I have for you guys. So we talked about some of the challenges that we face as women, but when we talk about the workplace, let's shift a little bit from the challenges that we have because of the stereotypes that we have that have been given to us and that we have perpetuated for quite some time, and think about how now have those stereotypes actually been beneficial to us as women. So all those stereotypes that we talked about earlier, you know, being soft or, you know, showing emotional intelligence, because now that's actually a trending word, right? How does that benefit us as
women?
Yeah.
What are the advantages of being a woman? So let me tell you a story. When I started practicing, and you know, I did love court. So I was a prosecutor. And I remember I had bought pantsuit. I had bought like 3 pantsuit, you know, just structured and thing. And you know, so love pants.
I can't imagine in a pantsuit.
Me either.
Awkward. And I remember there was a judge that called me into her chambers, and she said to me, Miss Cameron, you are already qualified as an attorney. Being an attorney is not a gender. You're an attorney. Be yourself.
Wow.
This was like in my very first year of practice, and I will never forget it. So I asked myself, you know, and I said to her, what do you mean? And she's like, you are them pants with there. From me see how you're moving them, you're not comfortable. No, girls, you know, one of the things with being a woman is that we have an ability, and it comes from our ability to nurture and to hear conversations that are not happening, but to hear conversations from body language. When we are on and paying attention, we are forces to be reckoned with. This whole thing that we're talking about balance, what we are able to do is to multitask. So we're in the negotiations while we're dealing with the team, doing our one-to-ones, getting it done. And when I learned very early that I never needed to get it done as a gender, I could use all of my talents, everything that is me, and be my authentic self and present my authentic self.
Yes.
I don't go to a job as a gender. And when I was leaving Cayman Wireless, one of my colleagues said something to me that was the biggest compliment. He is like, you forget that Rochelle is a girl. She's just a person. And a person who will wear a floral dress looking like I'm going off to tea for the most difficult negotiations. So I use my womanhood, and sometimes I need to bring that softness to the conversation.
100%.
We have to know as people what we bring to that table, and to use what we bring to the table, that emotional intelligence, the way we hear, the way we speak, the way we don't speak. Because sometimes your power is in your silence. Your power is in not saying one word, but nothing moves until you've given the nod. Because you work to build that kind of credibility. But sometimes we're fighting so hard to look fierce, assertive, that we're actually not even tapping into what our power actually is. Yeah.
I have a question, and this might be, do you think that the Me Too movement could exist in Jamaica in a real way?
Say what you mean exactly.
So do you think, so the Me Too movement came about when women started to talk about sexual harassment and actually call out their accusers. Is that something that is possible in Jamaica?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why do you not think it's possible?
Have you seen it?
Well, the question was, do we think it's possible?
Right, but so you're telling me yes that you think it's possible. So why haven't we seen it then?
That's a good question. I'm sure fear is probably the biggest thing.
What are we afraid of?
Catherine, why are you asking me the questions?
No, I'm asking, not you. I'm just asking generally. You're saying fear, so I'm saying what are we afraid of? Because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the way that we're cultured.
Right, and it goes back to the society of the fact that we don't talk about things. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about abuse. We don't talk about harassment.
Jamaica too small? Would we get blacklisted?
So I think there are a lot of things. I think you have a lot to say on the topic. So I think you should just say what's on your mind, Catherine Goodall.
Well, I mean, I think for me, I think I lived in a naive space and I didn't know that these things were real. You know, like this actually existed until I experienced it. And for me, my experience got me so angry, not because somebody tried to sexually assault me at my job, my boss, but because I could walk away and I was like, but what about everybody else that couldn't? Because this can't be the first time that you've done it, especially from the reactions that I got from the assistants trying to reach out to me to calm me down. And I'm like, oh, well, clearly you've done this before. And so when I start to talk about it and, you know, in my spaces and my friends are like, oh yeah, but that happened to me too. And everybody has a story, but then nobody's willing to share the story publicly. We have the ability to walk away or not deal with it or deal with it in a different way. But what about the people that don't have that ability? So then are we doing them a disservice?
Yeah, but so a couple of things you touched on, Kathy, that when you have the conversation, you realize how many people have had some harassment of some form, but not spoken about it. Then you get into the question of why don't we speak about it? And much of, I see people say blacklisting, the judgment, and the judgment heavily too from women. So the question usually is asked, why were you there?
Yeah.
Why did you say yes to that? Why did you go there? So
Stephanie summed it up. It's always about the accuser that gets it and not the accused.
Exactly. So by the time the accuser gets to any place, they've been so beaten down that they have also. Wait, Lorian says, I think to answer that question, we may have to examine the men and women relationship and its influence in our culture.
100%.
There are some layers that would need to be impacted. And Lorian, I was going there. You are so right. Because it is very important to, that our culture, that we can be loose and limber without touch, and if you say something about it, you're being approved because I saw him stay.
Yeah.
I had an experience at a time when I was a vice president, so you think say nobody would do not inappropriate.
Yes.
The other thing is that I'm a lawyer too, and I'm like, I went through the whole of my career and nobody. And at this stage, but let me tell you, God is good enough because I needed to experience, and it in the scheme of things, it affected me so badly because of the same point that I could take a stance. And I thought, and when I called the gentleman and I disaggregated his moral turpitude, I said to him, your daughters will enter the work world with no vacative. Is this okay?
Right.
I said, you are rude.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do something about it, but you know what? I needed that to happen at that stage so that you are not immune. You are not immune.
Yeah.
Right.
You are not immune. And then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing about it? So that's when you said there's no sexual harassment act. There is a sexual harassment act. I was all over it. I saw presentations about it. I delved into it. I ensured that my senior management team that I was working with, I went through an in-depth analysis of it and what behaviors were not acceptable and what will make you go to prison.
Right.
So the question is, and I had to look back to say, how much was I a voice against this before? Are we willing to speak about it when we are not a subject? Are we willing to stand up for that woman, or do we say, but her skirt always short and tight?
Right. Stephanie just said sexual harassment is ingrained in our society, and if you react or admonish it as inappropriate behavior, then they respond by saying, "Cha, you can't take like a joke." I will tell you that when I finally decided to address the matter at my job, because for 2 weeks I decided not to go back to the office. I just didn't go, and I was getting phone calls every day. And when finally I went and I said, "Here I am," the apology was, "I'm sorry." And I said, "What are you sorry for?" Because I need to be very clear about what you're sorry for. And I am sorry for upsetting you. And the problem is that you don't actually think that you did anything wrong. Because in your mind, you're a big woman, I'm a big man. And if you say no, then it's just so.
But even Catherine, like these conversations too that we have, that we're going to talk about whether or not I thought it was right or wrong. Do we believe that as women we're capable of moving past? Like, I don't need to have that conversation with you because I'm going to get this dealt with. But we think we need to give the person a chance to apologize and explain themselves. You know how it felt, and we are so terrified of the repercussions because we know how we are judged if we step forward. We have to ask ourselves as women, when we hear of these reports, what is our first reaction? What is our first reaction?
You know what, Roshi? And I can say more than the report, for me, my first reaction to when it happened was, what did I do to cause him to think that was acceptable? And I was like, wait, stop. Yeah. You did not do anything to make him believe that this behavior was acceptable.
Right.
But the first reaction is to question yourself and to question, did I put myself in a position to make them feel that way? Was I flirtatious? Was I acting too nice? Was I? And I was like, wait, strawberries. Don't you dare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens.
One of my friends said that when she was younger and she had reported an incident to human resources, the HR person actually said to her, you know what your problem is though? You skin your teeth too much.
Yeah.
Too laughy.
Yeah. As Stephanie said, we as women need to be better allies for each other.
Yeah. Our mother just said she was young, naive, married with one child, and she was shocked, embarrassed, and never spoke about it until she was much older. And she just didn't take a stance.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a prominent government person. Mm-hmm. It's the owner of the company.
More sense of embarrassment.
Yeah.
And as I said,
to ask, what did I do? I must have done something. And to play over, did I do something to suggest this? Maybe because I wonder if I giggled at that point, or, you know, what did I do to contribute to this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and a lot of the time when the inappropriate banter is taking place in the workplace, we encourage the foolishness. And we don't say, no, that's not appropriate conversation.
Wow. That's like a, you know, because sometimes we sit down there and because we want to act cool and be part of the crew, they give laugh for pea soup over some inappropriate jokes, inappropriate conversations, and we're afraid to get up and walk away and say this is wrong, because we're going to look like the prude and nobody will want to eat lunch with us.
Yeah. So Nay, wow, ladies, Nay.
Yes, it's a lot. I mean, we didn't even get to cover some of the stuff that we had, but I think it was definitely we probably need to have a part 2. And that I think what I will do to close is the fact that, you know, Rochelle had alluded to it earlier. These are things that we shouldn't just be waiting till International Women's Day to talk about. Yeah. Or International Women's History Month or whatever this is. And yes, it is great that we have a whole month that brings attention to these issues and they focus on the day and everybody takes their great pictures and those things. But what next? What happens after March is over? How do we now expand this conversation within our groups of friends, within our workplaces, with our HR directors, with the people that are influencers, with people in power, so that it doesn't just become a once a year thing and it is something that continues and there are programs in place so that the conversation continues going until there is some kind of solution that is created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, let us not take for granted that we've made a lot of progress. Absolutely. We've made a lot of progress. And so we just need to keep doing our part. And as individuals, we need to be accountable and we need to make sure that all of the things that we have been exposed to, that we have challenges with, that we are not a part of the problem.
Yeah, and
we're not the girl that is saying but her skirt too short, and we're not the girl that is saying but she too smiley, and we're not the ones that are saying that it's okay for people to do the things that are continuing to perpetuate the problem.
Yeah, and as there's someone said here, train them from school, the young ladies, and it's true, you know, we have guidance counselors, they do a great job, but I think there are some topics again that we don't talk about, that we need to talk about, and so that, you know, we're not, you know, our young women and men, and it's not just about the women.
I was just going to say about the women. We are
easily 15, and we talk about everything, and we talk about things that are inappropriate. We talk about all of those difficult things because at the end of the day, I am raising a young man that is going to be a boyfriend or a husband or an employee working with females or whatever in the future.
Or an employer.
Or an employer. He needs to know how to act and be respectful and treat women with equality as well. So it's very important that we don't just save these conversations for the girls. We have to have inclusive conversations with our young men, with our boys, and with our adult men as well. Because again, some people honestly are just raised a certain way. It's ingrained in their culture. This is how they grew up, and they don't know better. That's not everybody.
Right.
But there is an opportunity, and I think the more that we have these kinds of conversations, open conversations, it allows us to speak about these things in a very real way, that can hopefully connect with somebody that probably just didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't know I was touching you in an inappropriate way, you know?
Lauren says we need to have a part 2, 3, and 4. No, so we appreciate, guys, that these are real topics, and you know, like Rochelle said and Naomi said, it's not just about women, it's about all of us. And what we are all striving for is equality across the board, that we all treat each other the way that we want to be treated, and that we all respect each other the way that we want to be respected. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. Yeah. So thank you for you know, sharing this time with us. It has been
and it's 2021. Don't smile up yourself. Take up space.
Exactly.
Take up space.
Don't dim your light to make others feel warm.
Yeah. And in fact, when you dim your light, you're doing a disservice to others. Because when you shine your light, remember, you're showing people say light can shine, and you're causing other lights to be shined. So this is 2021. Like we keep talking about, because you know, these ladies know, like every year I ask, do we need an International Women's Day? Do we need a month? Because I'm like, what's happening? And I'm so glad that we have this conversation, because I actually feel fired up. I'm like, get moving, Rosh. Like, seriously, what are you doing to make a difference? So I choose to challenge my own laziness in dealing with issues that I have an ability to speak on, and not just speak on and walk away, but to take them to an end. So this has been so powerful. And you know, our emergers, the conversation, the comments have been so rich. It feels like you're all here with us. Thank you so much for being a part.
And I think, Rochelle, what we have to, I will pose this to the trio, but as much as we love having our emerging guests, I think we need to try and incorporate at least a couple of these conversations with, you know, about different topics as suggested, you know, in between the emerging conversations that we have with our special guests, where we get to just sit down and go through, you know, different topics that are of interest or of relevance to us and our emergers as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you. Great idea, Nay. So guys, don't forget to follow us on all our platforms at Ready to Emerge. We're here next week, Wednesday, 8 o'clock, same time, same place. Can you imagine that it's been almost a year since we started Detour Essentials?
Yes, our anniversary is coming up, guys.
And so we have a lot of exciting things in store for our anniversary. So keep watching, keep following, keep engaging. We're so grateful for all of you. We love you. You know, we miss you when you're not here. And we actually, when we come off, we're like, did you see Alicia today? Did you see Esther today? Did you see Lansdale today? Did you see Kevin?
I did see Lansdale today. So
yeah. So we really truly cherish the fact that you guys choose to spend your Wednesday with us. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Guys, if you were impacted by this episode, please make sure that you not only like, but you share in your networks, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, and tell them they need to log on to Ready to Emerge and watch this episode.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Bye, everybody.